There you go. Fair warning.
Awesome.
In that case, I'm also
Cool.
going to share this HackMD so people can
Perfect.
follow along.
All right. Cool. All right. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the December. It's December already. December 3rd meeting of the Rust Governance Working Group. Topic for this meeting is the access policy for GitHub permissions. But before we dive into that, is there anything else anyone wants to make sure we discuss or that's on people's minds?
What our next topic will be, but we can save that for later.
Yeah.
That is a good question.
Put that at the end.
Yep.
All right.
Let's do it.
Cool. Yeah, let's dive right in. So we began discussing the GitHub access policy, and I put a link in the Discord channel, which we need some sort of policy for giving it write access or admin access to our GitHub orgs. Right now, my understanding is it's very ad hoc, and it'd be good to have some sort of system in place on this, or just make it a lot more manageable than it currently is. So I thought maybe we could, this was months ago, but I drafted a couple of ideas for a policy based on the conversation. I'm going to link directly to one of them, putting it in the Discord forum. I think it's already on that. Oh, yep, that thing. So if we scroll down to September, we have our latest draft of this. And then there were some questions that happened afterward. So what we can do is we can start with the draft and discuss it. We can discuss the questions that came up in the GitHub issue. Would that work for everyone?
Yeah, let's start with the draft.
Yep.
All right, cool. Well, if you don't mind being the scroller, let's go ahead and just read through it. I'm not going to read it out loud. One of the things I hated in my college courses was when we had to read the syllabi, whatever the plural is, out loud. But everyone wants to just take a moment, review it either on this screen or on your own screen.
Yeah, so
All right, how are people doing?
I'm still reading here.
Tired.
Okay.
But
yeah.
So one
I have a few comments.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Go right ahead.
Go ahead, Nico.
No, I'd like to hear Pietro's comments first. But
Okay, so once is that about everyone having a read access, that might not be what we actually want. Like, I think we have a few repositories on the Rust organization that are actually private. And like, I mean, those repos are mostly for security or core, I guess. So like, I don't know how it's useful to have that in the policy, but like, we want some repos that not everyone has read access to.
That's a good point.
it seems like would be fine to just say the default is public repo.
Yeah.
But private repos can be created for specific reasons.
And also about the triage rule, it doesn't really work for us because I think it doesn't allow to edit issues or add comments, and at least on the mine compiler repo, that's something that everyone does all the time. Like on the compiler, we have I think 150 people with write access because we need to add the comments from the error messages bot and also to change checkboxes or issue descriptions. And unfortunately, that's not something we can do with triage role. It was really unfortunate because in Infra we had a call with GitHub and they asked, hey, do you want to provide feedback so we can tweak it before it exits beta? And like the next day it exited beta. So like we didn't have a chance to give that feedback to GitHub.
Okay, just making sure I got this correct in the notes. Was the question was the comment, people may not be able to add comments in GitHub code reviews unless they have write access?
They can't edit comments.
Or hide.
Yeah, edit or hide. Right?
Oh, I forgot about that. Okay, gotcha.
I think first of all, I'm also not sure what the term reviewers actually means. So that might be a term you want to define or something, but maybe that distinction isn't even that meaningful.
I think that mainly means like for the release team and the triage working group, like the people who are pinging other team members to like bring their attention to like an issue.
Okay, not sure
why.
why.
My interpretation.
Yeah. So one thing I would say is like, we might want to get more specific. Like I'm thinking about the compiler team specifically, that I think there we have a variety of repositories. We probably want a policy that's like, and the compiler team has a policy here, and I don't know whether it should be included or not, but it's kind of like the compiler team gets write access, the compiler team contributors get write access to all of those. And then there is often a working group team that's also associated, that also has access, right? And there's kind of that. And I would imagine we have some structure that we might be worth spelling out, kind of like that a typical structure would be that the team has some number of, like the Rust team has some GitHub teams associated with it, and they get write access. And then specific to the repository, there might be also a team that, like a Rust working group or some other Rust structure that wants access. What I don't know is sometimes we might want to just add people ad hoc. It sounds like the recommendation here is to kind of create some form of GitHub team. Would we want to manage that with the team repo? Does that make sense?
That was my idea a few months ago. But I'm definitely willing to hear feedback or pushback on that.
No, I think it's a good idea, but but if we're going to manage it with the team, if it's not tied to something in the Rust org, that feels more problematic to me. Or like,
you'd always just have one team that's like how we have the alumni team that is just members who are previous members. We could have like an ad hoc group that's, opt-in for specific people.
Yeah, like I think the reason why we added that clause was that if we add the individual collaborators, it's way easier to forget they have access if they don't contribute anymore.
It seems okay to just make a team if needed that's specific to the repo. Are you just imagining making like a GitHub, just like a random GitHub team? It's not tied to anything in the Rust org.
I think we have some, like the Rust push team on GitHub is like those 150 people who have write access to the Rust repo.
Yeah,
it's not great.
But that team should probably go away, right? Like probably it should become a union of compiler contributors and triage or something, right?
Yeah.
I think this is also the thing is that GitHub Teams is not as easily triageable itself. Like it's not as easy to check, okay, who are you up to date with your current membership? Is this currently a team that's still going on? Whereas the team repo makes it quite easy to see that.
Yeah, I'm definitely on board with managing everything through the team repo.
I guess I kind of think we should just make it all part. We should try to see if we can have everything be reflected from the Rust org somehow, right? And if there's some repository then that needs special people to have access to it, then maybe that is a kind of working group that should be reflected in our, like those people are maintaining a part of the Rust-Lang infrastructure. they have a role. Why don't they have a place in the org? Doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Like I think the end goal here would be to add automation that checks every repository that they don't have individual collaborators, and then having the synchronization code to remove teams that are not defined in the team repo. So all the structure is defined just there.
Yes.
But we need to do a lot of work to get to that point.
Right. This is a little bit aspirational, but that's okay, right? We should define the endpoint we want.
Yeah, we would need a research spike or something. The comfort I take is we cannot be the only one, which is good.
No, your mic cut out for just like 5 seconds there.
Oh, the good thing is we are definitely not the only ones with this problem. So we can also look at how other organizations are trying to manage it.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of actual edits, it sounds like, are we just going to remove this notion of triage access since it's not useful to us? Or
yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah, I think on the team repo, on the Rust repo, we just have the triage team with triage access to it. I can speak tonight. And that mostly because they started using it, so they don't know they can't edit issues. Like we tried switching the Rust push team to be triage, and like we got complaints like a few minutes after.
By the way,
So
fair warning, I'm randomly muting people because I heard a lot of echo. And I'm hoping to stop it. So I guess I would say something like this. You should assign privileges to groups within the Rust org, which have a corresponding GitHub team, therefore. They should either get, like read, well, read doesn't make sense, but you can give them triage or write, but we usually just give write. But like if for some particular repo triage suffices for some, that's I wouldn't be opposed to that. But you don't give them admin, right?
Gotcha.
Except for team leads, maybe. This, by the way, is probably a good idea, but I don't do this. I should do this.
I should do that
account.
too.
I think we should start to enforce that. Just say every code member.
I mean, I like to have these sort of things just so I don't like type git push-f in the wrong place and accidentally like revert all of Rust, which I've almost done before. But
and yeah, I think team leads having access to the repository is fine. Right, admin access to the repository is fine. Like we probably don't want that for every repo because like on the main compiler repository, I don't want anyone to have admin access to that.
Yes.
That's fair.
I was wondering about that actually. Like, what do you get? You don't get much with admin access, right? That you don't.
Sorry?
I'm sorry.
You don't get
much. Can you say that again?
Like there's not much additional privileges that you get with admin versus write. You don't think so?
Adding collaborators and such. And adding teams. I think that's an admin only functionality.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense then. We don't want to bother infra all the time for stuff like that.
Okay.
All right.
I guess the next question is like, how are we going to actually make this happen?
Right.
That and were there other concerns that were not adopted here? Oh, I have one other question. Do we think there might be some teams that should just always have access to all repos? Like, for example, should the core team, I guess they're organization owners or something, so in theory they do, but, or infra. I feel like infra probably just should have access to everything, but I guess it does because of being an organization owner or something.
At the very least, the infra admins group that is on the team.
I was wondering whether like triage, but go on.
that's way more complex, and I'm pretty sure we don't want to give triage access to other repositories, because like giving write access to people works on the main compiler repository because we have branch protection. So even though they have write access, they can't push on master, for example.
Okay.
But that's set up mostly on the compiler repo and some other ones.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
Either we had branch protection everywhere.
We could say
Which we could do.
we recommend you protect the branch, but if you don't, use your at your own risk.
But yeah, and regardless, I don't think triage, like, they're not actually doing anything on these repos, so why give them write access? It makes sense to only do it for repos where triage is actually doing things.
Sorry, is triage a team?
Yeah, good question. It's a working group. It's part of
But
the
it's a working group, but also just generally, we have people who regularly ping other members to remind, to like poke them essentially and be like, what's the status of this?
Yeah, like I think there could be just if they need access to another repo, we can ensure it's correctly configured to avoid them having access to more things that it should do, and then just give them right access to the repo or triage access to the repo.
So I list.
Yeah, so I understand.
I listed out these open
so
questions.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, I was just gonna say, it's my understanding that like to do stuff that you think wouldn't require write access on GitHub does, for example, like changing reviewers and stuff, which is why it has to have the Rust High 5 bot on the repo if you want to have like triagers assign specific reviewers or change labels and stuff.
Yeah. So about those questions on the screen right now.
These are some. The last time since I have the screen, I get to control a little bit. The last time I tried to do a review of the open questions, this is what I came up with. I don't know if we didn't address all of these, but most. One was GitHub orgs. I think we said in the policy we strongly prefer Rustling. I personally think we should just move everything to Rustling, but that's
so
okay. Strongly prefer is probably suffice for now.
That's a bit more complex because we're probably going to create a separate organization for infra, and not for everything infra, but just for the compiler CI, because that allows us to limit access even more. Because like GitHub permissions are so far-reaching that we can't really restrict who get access to the secrets inside the compiler repository with GitHub Actions.
Yeah.
So if we switch to GitHub Actions, we'll probably have to create a separate org for that. But unless there's a very valid case, I prefer not to have any other organization than Rustling.
I think that's sort of where I would say too. I think we could strengthen the language a little to be like, you need a reason to have another org. Right. I think we covered most of these security requirements, with the exception of maybe two-factor authentication. I don't know.
That I think we should definitely do and enforce, and I believe GitHub has a way to enforce that. If you're a member of an org. Oh, we are? Sweet.
For the main organization, we're doing that, and I think, and we did some work to enforce it on the nursery as well. But like for the team-specific organizations, I don't actually know what the status is because I don't have access to them. I can't check that. So like another reason to centralize everything as much as possible is that we can just enforce security much easier.
Right, and I think we should probably decisions have already kind of been made, but I'd like to make them more officially that like these other orgs are deprecated. Probably this one too. I don't even know what this is. I guess it's like deprecated projects or something.
Deprecated in the name. Yeah.
That's essentially an organization filled with deprecated. I was going to ask about that one. Like, do we keep that one? I think regardless, we should document all the ones that are different
I think
Anyway, from the main one.
with the ability now to archive repos, you may not need a separate deprecated repo or deprecated organization.
I mean, those are kind of strange because those are deprecated, but are actually sort of maintained in like we sometimes merge patches. Because I think like in the deprecated creates like time or all those old stuff that we still want to merge patches from time to time, but then you shouldn't use them. Let me see what's actually there.
If they're being maintained, they should probably just go to Rustling.
That's what I think.
I mean, like, for example, there is Rust serialized there, which last update was 8 days ago.
Yeah, so they're not I feel like they should just be
like,
in Rustling and just have a label that says they're deprecated or something. But,
yeah, we can do that.
so it seems like we need to reach out to the teams.
Most of them are actually archived. Like the only ones that are not archived are some perf stuff, temp deer, and Rust serialized, and like those two I think are still a bit used in the ecosystem, so we can't archive them.
Okay.
Also, like random people have access to that organization. Like there are 8 random people with access to it.
Right. I think we should just not let. It seems like every time we uncover another org, we uncover some random failure to enforce the rule. So
do we also know who admins that, so we can add the the Rustlang owner to like change who's part of that group?
Like I'm admin there, but like there is Emily Durham, which doesn't contribute to Rust anymore, and she's an owner of the organization for whatever reason.
So, what? All right. So we need to do a little research also to find out what team-specific orgs there are, right?
Let me invite you, Nico, to .org.
Sure.
Could you invite me as well?
Sure. I'll give Nico owner access. And I'll give you member access. What's your... Can you send me your GitHub username?
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah.
Team-specific ones, I know DevTools community also has one. Does the compiler team have one?
No. Florian, are you on the call? Do you have an opinion about the community team having a Rustling, or like, is there any reason that it has its own GitHub org? Is there any good reason? You're muted or something. Oh, I'm not
you're
hearing.
you're not muted. Your microphone volume is just really low, and the sound of the call is coming out of the speakers. By the way.
Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Better.
Okay. So community team is mainly easier management of access for non-crucial repositories. That's mainly historic. So back when everything was handled manually, we just found it easier to have a team that has members joining very often and dropping that don't need any kind of privileged access to Rustlang. We just found it better to basically use it as a blast shield.
I see.
That's
but nowadays, probably would be okay to maintain to the team repo.
Yes, we could move. We would need to rename the community team, like Rust community/team repo, to something. We can totally do that.
Is it only one? How many repos are in there?
No, it's multiple repos. We have.
Yeah, actually, there's quite a few projects.
But all those can be either cleaned up or moved. One thing that I dislike about GitHub, in contrast to GitLab, actually, it's that GitLab has a 3-level namespace where you can basically have the organizational grouping of repos within an organization. Another argument for actually pulling everything into one org at GitHub means that if we ever need to migrate, that's the first step we'd need to do anyways, figuring out what's there, figuring out who owns things, and at least making sure that we always have someone who at least organizationally owns all the repositories if we need to pull them over.
We can sort of do that. Like the repositories can have topic. I don't know what's actually called. I think topics, like the labels, the tags, that stuff. And like we could have a bot enforcing that every repository has like Rust infra, Rust community, Rust DevTools. Like I did that for infra for a bit.
Well, that's for, you're talking about for like for having different tiers, but I guess the real go on.
That's outside of the access policy, but we should also at some point figure out what we all even have spread over all those.
Now we need to do an audit, it sounds like.
Seems like we should move these. These seem like they could all move to Rustlang.
Yeah, all of those are single serving websites for an event that we ran and tried out. So these can all be deprecated and deleted or kept around for historic reasons.
So maybe now the question is, how do we make any of this happen? Or what are the steps?
Do we think DevTools could move into the Rustlang org, or does that need to be evaluated?
I should think so, but I forget, did Manish leave a comment about it? Oh. Okay, that's fine. I thought these were all orgs for a second, but they're not.
Okay.
They're just, I was like, oh my God. There's also a ton. Oh, these are just two rows.
One thing I find much more interesting is, for example, things like the embedded working group, because the embedded working group is highly productive in writing libraries.
Yeah.
Do all those move under?
That's a good question.
That brings
like
the whole
for now.
Hmm?
For now, inside the infrastructure team, the consensus is that official working groups are free to use the Rust infrastructure. But I think for the domain working groups, we probably want them not to work on the main Rust organization, but to have their separate ones.
The question will be, I feel okay with, for now at least, the domain working groups having their own GitHub orgs, but I think it's an interesting question, especially because, you know, they're somewhat official, and it may be like that we want to move the embedded working group to be a team at some point. Then what happens? But I don't know. I guess we'll deal.
Gotcha. So we're thinking maybe teams should all be under Rustlang, but working groups can have their own GitHub orgs. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think like domain working groups, okay. But like working groups under a Rust team should just be in the main organization. Because like working groups working groups under a team, as far as I understand, just focus on a part of the main Rust project relevant to that team, while domain working groups explore how how Rust can integrate in a specific part of the ecosystem, and so that's more exploratory and unofficial work.
My favorite word, official. I think the embedded working group is actually a good example to investigate if you want to investigate these questions, because it's a highly productive group, but it also implements things like very specific board support for certain kinds of vendor boards that they're currently investigating. And I'm not sure if coming up with a policy on how such a repository should be run under Rustlang is, I don't know. But for example, the embedded book or things like that, that might be interesting. I don't know. Maybe we should just...
I kind of feel like we have got enough to chew. Like, part of me wants to cut them, to say, let's just leave that, because we've getting the dev tools in the Rust community would already be a massive coup. and we can come back to this question of how to handle the domain working groups and whether they fit.
Yeah, I can subscribe
I
to
also
that view.
think it's good to have as a separate organization, or maybe at the start they could have a single repository available to them, sort of like how we have for the governance working group, where it's just a single repository under Rustling to handle all the organization, and then if they want to have their own repositories, they can make their own organization. And this will also be good for, because working groups, the membership fluctuates more than the teams,
One
because
question.
a lot of people initially sign up and then fade away, and then sort of comes in spurts until it stabilizes.
One question I still have is, if we have domain working groups that are official, do we still have expectations like, for example, please enforce 2FA, because these are attack vectors? And the second one being, do we expect that, for example, at least a Rustlang account will be owner of the organization, so that no one can grab the organization and run away with it? Like some kind of minimal expectation.
So
That's a good question.
the account exists, like it's the Rustlang owner bot account, which is already used to synchronize the stuff with the synchronize team members with team repo. And like if we want to bless more the Rust project being on more organization, we definitely want to build tools that automatically check whether all organizations are complying with our policies. And so in that case, we can just say if we're going to validate all the organization owned by that bot account, and we say, like, I think it's fair to say if you are an official working group, please add that bot account as owner of the organization.
Yeah, I think like if we're trusting these people to go and do this work, we can trust them to also have good security. Like just as part of creating the working group, it has to, okay, you create this group, it has to require this and this.
I don't think we can
And
trust them to have
the
good
current
security.
transition.
That
Yeah.
they mostly all just do. I think we can trust them to want to. They don't know, but they keep it. They all need guidance. But I'm wondering, Pietro, how hard is it to write a bot to validate compliance of this kind? Like, I was thinking that such a bot might be useful for creating a to-do list as well. But
I mean, like, it's mostly just, it's not actually, I don't think we probably want an actual GitHub bot, but just a simple program that queries the GitHub API and lists the organization, lists if they are 2FA enabled or the list of repositories and their collaborators. And then we just stick that to cron in a cron somewhere that's to send alerts if something changes. So it shouldn't be too hard. It depends on how many how many things you want to change, to check, sorry.
We should make it an issue for this bot, because I think might be interested in working on that.
Okay, who would like to make that issue?
I'll do it right now.
It seems like the actual steps we have are, first, we got to figure out which team. We should probably send out an email just being like, we know about these team-specific orgs. Are there others? Because I wouldn't be surprised if there was another one. And yeah, a bot to try to enumerate. I'm guessing virtually every repository in the Rustling org does not follow these policies, but
I've got a Ruby gem already written that can scan all repos in an org for various files. We might be able to reuse some of the behavior from that.
yes, Ruby.
I think we probably want in Rust.
Oh, of course, yeah. Take the behavior and translate it into Rust.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
Which APIs and stuff like, yeah, use as a starting point.
I don't know what other, that's probably the first two steps, I guess. One other question I had was about whether, this is probably not important. I was thinking about crates.io policies. I know that the compiler team has, like, who should be owner of things that are published to crates.io, which often comes with repos, but I think that's a separate question. Like, this is GitHub access policies, not all policies.
But yeah, I think there's also, like, for example, the Discord and Zulip and
Yes.
all the other services that have just like also Travis and the CI stuff as well. All these services that have popped up over time.
The only connection is that I think having everybody, another advantage to having everything go through GitHub Teams is you can make them owners of crates on crates.io and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It all works together better.
Cool. Well, then,
We don't have Slack, by the way.
oh, I don't know why I put discourse rather than Discord. All right, there we go. That trips me up all the time. Cool. And then I think we have one more.
Well, we do have some deprecated Slacks, but
okay, we won't worry about that.
Yeah. The increasing Rust reach, that was done over Slack.
Gotcha.
Okay, so.
And then one more question that was on the GitHub issue: who should have commit access to the team repo?
That's a really good question.
Manish suggested very limited set of people because the team repo basically is the master key to all the other things. I think that makes a lot of sense. At the same time, it's super annoying that like team leads can't add working group members, can't add members to their own working group, whatever. But c'est la vie, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, like, if we really want, we could use the GitHub code owners feature to restrict the teams. Like,
I don't know what that feature is. Does that let you sort of
like it allows you to require a person reviewing a file. And I think we can probably twist it that to say that a team lead can only edit his own file without requiring approval from code.
I think we could do that. We use code owners in Habitat, similar to that way.
But still, the way the team repo is set up right now, the list of members and the list of permissions is in the same file.
Yeah.
It's like a team could just say, oh, I am on the docs team, I'm going to get write access to the
Gotcha.
Plus you have to run add person and stuff like that. So if you're adding someone new, oh, I guess you could give everybody access to that. Anyway, I think it's fine to just go with a limited set, and it's annoying, but we'll deal. It's not that annoying.
Yep. We can also make changes to the team structure that maybe better suits this.
Right.
If there is a better workflow.
Yeah, definitely change the scheme on disk to better support code owners. And yeah, but like we need to be really careful with who has access to that team, because like there is some efforts inside Mozilla to get a single sign-on on all their AWS accounts, which includes the Rust account, because we are under Mozilla for AWS for billing reasons. And if we do that and we need to set up SSO, I want to integrate at least some parts of it. Like I definitely don't want to give admin access to all AWS through the team repo, but like a subset, like if you're on the .service team, you get access to the .service resources. It would be cool to do that automatically. So if we actually do that, then we really need to lock down who can actually make changes in the team repo. Yeah. I still don't know if that's a good idea. Like security-wise, is something.
Where's the? All right. Well, that seems good. So, do we have like action items?
Because like.
Seemed like we did.
Go ahead.
Like if you let me ramble for a bit, like I think the team repo is great, but we need to be careful about how much of a single point of failure we want it to be.
Yes.
Because if changing that gives you access to most, we don't want to get to a point when if someone can sneak a commit there, they can basically have full access to everything. We definitely don't want that.
Gotcha.
And maybe over time develop some sort of external approval for some permissions or something like that.
I think another good example is the icebreaker stuff, where we want it to be very easy to add yourself to that list. But like right now, when I review a PR for someone to add themselves to the icebreaker, it's like, I better look at it pretty careful, because if I'm not looking closely, maybe they also added themselves to the core team or something.
Yeah. I think.
Yeah. Oh, so I was actually thinking about maybe trying to add some kind of front end to the team thing, so that some
Yeah.
people could essentially do the CLI thing, but through the web instead.
Yeah, that was I was actually going to say this for adding got let me. I think like it might also be able to yeah, having some way to do that will also basically solve all the problems, because we could just scope the amount of changes you can make in the web application. So like say, oh, you are the team lead, you can automatically push a commit directly to master adding a new person without going through a pull request. But that's development work to be done, and it's in a big pile of to-do list that everyone on the organization has.
All right. Well, I think we discussed this pretty thoroughly. This has been a fantastic discussion. Some action items to come out of this meeting. I'd like to take on rewriting the proposal based on our conversation, or the proposal for the permission policy based on this conversation.
Sounds good. I'm wondering if it should be an RFC or just put it on Forge with an RFC.
Yep, I think I'll probably want to take it through one more draft and get some direct input and then open it up for an RFC.
I feel like an RFC would be a suitable fit. It'd be nice to include some of the reasoning.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree, not necessarily right away.
Sure.
It would also give people a chance to be like, wait a minute, don't forget my use case.
Yeah, that makes sense. What else?
Bot? Compliance bot?
Bot and compliance bot and pinging community and dev tools, someone on both of those orgs, or multiple people to start moving things over.
And
so to actually run the compliance bot, we access to the owner account is everyone with 1Password access. So just
is that the same group as infra admins, or is that a different? Okay.
No, 1Password. I actually haven't looked into integrating it with the team repo. I don't. I'm not actually an admin on 1Password. I'm just a member with access to everything. So I don't actually know who has access.
I guess this is also another action item: is listing all of the services like these to have permissions and someone with admin.
As an action item for this work?
Well, in the future, when we want to start on the next work, we need to know, I guess, starting point. Okay, these are the next ones after GitHub.
Oh, I see. It's more of a future work. The other thing would be for the Rustling nursery org, there's a long list of crates that still have to be migrated, or repos. And somebody probably needs to go through them and decide what happens to them. As an example, I see things like failure and error chain are in there, which is quite surprising to me. And I don't know. I guess they probably all go to Rustling. Maybe some of them just get archived or something. But that would be a work item.
I don't think we actually want to archive them, because that means people cannot feel issues on those anymore, and like they're still a lot used.
Yes.
In the system.
Yeah, so they probably just go to Rustling. That's it.
I think that's the value of the deprecated organization. Like, if we actually want to say everything is deprecated, the deprecated organizations allows us to explicitly say, hey, this is not something we think is recommended for the future, but we're still going to accept issues for it and possibly accept patches from time to time.
Right, but we can just mark it as deprecated.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yes.
It sounded like someone was trying to get in the conversation.
Also, they do have issues, so we need to also figure out what to do when no one replies. Like right now, we've sort of said, "Hey, whoever has admin access to this repository, please move it." Or if they say yes on the issue, then Mark moves it. But we need to give someone the executive.
I'll put an action item to figure that out.
And
Well, in the case
I
of
think
Rustling
the-
Nursery, at least, I think we have enough code, like org owners or whatever, that we can just do it.
Oh yeah, we can always just do it. Yeah, like Mark can do it. It's just more like no one wants to move it without someone, saying yes.
Oh,
So,
I do.
like I said, someone needs to come down and say, "Hey,
I don't-
just move it." And
I was
then-
just planning to go move them all one by one
Yeah.
and not ask permission. But
I think there are still things that might break.
yeah.
yeah. The problem is,
GitHub
well.
all
pages.
the
are actually-
organization, GitHub pages will break.
No, GitHub
those-
pages are actually fixed that
Okay, great.
because I created a 404 page on the rustlingNursery.github.io, which redirects unconditionally to the main domain. So if there is anything 404, it's going to be redirected to rustling.io.
Gotcha. All right.
That's
Anyway,
Go ahead.
opening issues is good. It's always good to be polite.
Yeah.
And I think the other
The issues are open for a while.
the other action item is to continue pinging people about synchronizing the team structure with the team repo, because all of these only make sense if the team repo is up to date and if teams are synchronized with GitHub.
The teams are mostly pretty recently synced. The main thing now is all the working groups. So the domain working groups, as well as the compiler and line team working groups. Specifically, there are also a lot of working groups where their status is unclear, whether they should continue to exist or be archived, and how do we archive a team in the.
Let's do that for another. That's a different meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got about 10 minutes left, and I've got a hard stop at 2 minutes to the hour. So we've got a whole bunch of action items. I often find the only way an action item progress gets done is if it is assigned to someone. So I can take on rewriting the proposal. Who wants to take on investigating the compliance bot?
I think
I
Aaron
can work on
mentioned
that. Yeah.
Okay. And then ping community and ping dev tools. This seems like it could be done by the same person.
I can certainly ping.
I think the first step would be to get the Rustling owner bot as owner of the organization, because that way everyone would from password access.
I can ping community.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Very short ping.
All right. Looks like auditing at the Rustling Nursery org.
Is it? Yeah, maybe if they already have issues, maybe this really just a matter of going through and doing.
Some of them have active discussion where people are doing a transition. I think the only one is the CLI working group repository that's in there. I think the rest of them are either just no reply, so someone can just move them.
All right.
Will there be a document where the status of this stuff is maintained? Would that be helpful?
I think it would be, at least initially getting started.
I'd be happy to do that. So.
Awesome.
That would be cool. Yeah, I think that's definitely a thing we need. It could be that should be a GitHub issue, but.
Just in terms of to see who's responded to your pings, and then also which repos have been audited, and then also, basically who responds to the pings, to the audit requests, and the synchronizing. I see several things there where you'd need a list to keep track of who you're trying to reach and who's responded. And
maybe
next.
Maybe making a hack MD would be the easiest, I guess, for an issue. I like to track these things. That sounds great, by the way. Exactly the right info.
Absolutely.
tracking in a GitHub issue, or the only problem with GitHub issue is you have to be able to edit the thing. So we have to, ironically, we have to get the access permissions for our own repo straightened out.
I'll go bug
This
somebody with
does help.
questions about the best way to do that in this context offline. So
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. All right. So figuring out what to do. I mean, let's do this after we've tracked who's responded and who hasn't.
Yep.
I think that. Oh, go ahead.
And can you send me the URL of this document?
Oh, certainly. I'll put it in the Discord channel right now.
I'll
Thank you,
also drop it in the Zoom.
Cool. Perfect.
We also have one more action item, which is summarizing this for the blog post next and deciding the topic, which we have to do right now.
Yeah. I was going to propose, did we cover there's the clarify working group terminology. I'm just looking for issues that have like some progress. I have this thing around, I have a proposal around the Lang team structure that I've been trying to move forward that I could see it being useful to talk about it here, but I don't know. I don't know if anyone else has other thoughts for next time, or maybe there's follow-up work to be done.
I think going with the Lang team one as well, because there, I think after the next 2-week period, we'll have to have a break as well, because I think we want the next one to be right around Christmas.
I was gonna check into that. All right, why don't we?
Yeah, like
December 17th. Yeah. So, yeah. Why don't we do the Lang team one, and then it also gives me a deadline to write up like a blog post and advertise it a little bit. Does that mean I have to summarize this meeting? I think it does. I think that was what we said. Whoever has to do the handoff. All right, I'll do that.
Yeah.
What's the timeline?
We do these meetings every 2
generally,
weeks, if that was the question.
Yeah, so the
and
next
we-
check-in for this is 2 weeks from now?
Yeah. And generally we try to have like the blog post that summarizes it by the next week, so the 10th or around that week. Also, I should note that the next one after the 17th is the 31st, and I don't think we'll have one on New Year's Eve.
No.
So we'll have to just make sure to cancel that and then start back up again on the 14th.
Pretty
Sounds
sure.
reasonable.
Sounds good. Thanks, y'all.
All right. I think we've got everything in place. Thanks everyone for joining. Thanks everyone who's watching at home. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks. Anything else on anybody's mind before we close out?
Thank you.
All right. All right. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Take care.
See ya.